here quick and have people introduce themselves.
Dennis Pollock, Ward 6.
Shane Blazer, Mayor.
Dean Veneman, District 2, sorry.
Ryan Austin, District 1 and committee member.
Paul Vollert, Public Works Superintendent.
Joe Eichstead, City Engineer.
Thank you. And with that, we'll get to item number 2, review of the Engineering and Street Department monthly activity reports. Joel, you want to go first? Engineering?
Sure. Thank you. Just a few highlights for the month of October. 254 diggers locates this month is definitely one of our busiest months of the year typically. Certainly expect those to slow down here. Our seasonal help is ending November 14th, so next week, Tuesday. But certainly with cooler weather, when it shows up, it'll definitely slow things down. On to traffic. We did look at stop sign, yield sign requests at 2nd Street and Poplar Street. We got traffic count data back for that intersection. The traffic counts that we received, we've got average daily traffic in each direction, 39 vehicles per day in one direction and 57 vehicles per day in another direction. No accidents in the last 5 years, and the vision appears to be suitable. So at this time, it doesn't appear that there's any warrants for increasing the traffic control at that intersection. In addition, at 5th Street and Strodeman, not as stated in the report, but I did find out that we did get information back, traffic count data several weeks ago, prior to putting this report together. But 100 vehicles per day in one direction, 150 vehicles per day in another direction. Again, no accidents, vision is suitable. So there again, there isn't a need or warrant for increased traffic control at that intersection as well. I guess in addition, 2023 reconstruction projects, we've got a sewer lining contract that's underway. The cleaning and televising is complete for that work on 17th Avenue, and the lining activities were to commence this week Monday if the liners were ready, otherwise as early as next week. For reconstruction projects for the future, just wrapping up survey on East Jackson Street for calendar year 2025, and then diving into design for our 2024 projects and continuing to get those ready for construction for next construction season. And then we also submitted applications for the STP Urban program in the month of October, as well as the local road improvement applications. And there's an item later on in the agenda to discuss those in a little bit more detail. In addition, there was a couple small preliminary surveys that we did for, one's for a manhole replacement for the wastewater department, and then the other was for a pickleball court for the parks department. And that concludes the engineering report.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions or comments or anything? Joe, I'm just going to ask one, and we've talked about it a little bit before, and had to do with one of the reports on 2nd and Poplar there. And I know, and I see that the request for a traffic control sign of some type was requested, but just wanted to ask again, I think I mentioned it to you the other day, is that one of the comments I had was that a deaf child being in the area. Is there anything that would do anything or persuade the department to look at any further traffic signage?
Yeah, I'd want to, I guess I should have double checked before the meeting, just to reference our policies. I think we have a policy on that. Certainly, I know we've got some for other types of signs, like children at play or things like that. I'm not sure if we address the deaf child or that type of situation, but I could definitely look into it further.
Yeah, if you can look into that, and I'm not sure which house, per se, that, a child lives in over there, but I'd appreciate if you'd look into that further. Thank you.
Certainly.
Paul, Street Department?
Thank you. My report and other documents were submitted on Tuesday for you and then handed out hard copies, so just wasn't part of the original packet. All of our construction projects, for the most part, are completed. Oak Street from East Jackson to 16th Street, we have one property that we have to do some restoration on. There was some miscommunication there with some tree removals and responsibility, but that'll be completed here in the week coming. The seeding of that will take place in the spring due to the not having very good luck of trying to dormant seed it. Seems like our salt takes the new seed out or whatever, so that'll be seeded in the spring. 9th Avenue from High Street to Fremont, that project is completed. All the manholes have been cut out and everything like that. Shorewood Terrace, this will be the same situation where everything is completed. Curb and gutter is backfilled. Only thing left to do in the spring of the year will be the seeding of the grassy areas. Apricot and Broadway as well. Everything is completed there except for on Apricot Street. There is a half a block section between Broadway and 11th Street where we built a retaining wall. And so there will be a 200-foot section that'll stay gravel through the winter. There's no houses or anything in that section. As we're finishing up the construction of that retaining wall here, probably end of next week, we just have some cap work and things like that, but then there's curb and gutter and sidewalk that has to be completed in the spring there, and then the paving. So as far as that goes, I feel our construction season was pretty successful. We have our projects done probably 2 weeks earlier than what we have had in the past, so things went well. Street maintenance, over the last month, we worked diligently to get some sanitary patches completed and restored. Locations of those were 16th and Chestnut, 10th and Peach, 16th and Apricot, and then 19th Avenue just south of Clark Street. Those were either sewer patches that we completed using the emergency fund through the wastewater treatment plant, or that plumbers have done through the summer months here. We also did the first round of leaf collection. The second round will be next week. The first round, there wasn't that much stuff out there just due to the late fall, I guess you'd say. We have also been screening some compost at the west side. We also have a crusher rented, so we're crushing asphalt chunks that we bring in from our construction projects to be used like on our gravel alleys and shoulder material and stuff like that, so they're out at the pit. We continue to go through and sweep the streets, trying to get rid of any of the leaves that get caught in the roadway, as well as continuing to do as much maintenance as we can since we get this extended warm weather, getting stuff completed. Our sign shop, we completed the work orders that we were given through for the on-street parking and the bike lane on Baker Street from 5th to 8th. The only thing that we'll have left to do there is sandblasting the yellow off the curb, and then there's the old fog line kind of fell in between in the bike lane, so it kind of is slightly confusing when you look at it because there's 3 lines there instead of 2. And we may be able to get that completed yet this fall if it continues to go the way that it is. Otherwise, that work group is working on getting Christmas decorations and a bunch of signs that we were backlogged on there, but our no parking on Saratoga and 5th Street work order is complete, as well as Engler Road over by the middle school. Then as far as our shop goes, continue to do routine service, service police vehicles. We now have all 4 of our patrol trucks ready for any sort of event that we would get in. Our patrol trucks, I guess, is what I call our trucks that are responsible for salting and sanding, and then they have underbodies and rear-mounted wings on them. We also, last month, completed the installation of our pretreatment, taking a truck that was going to be replaced and put a flatbed on it, and then that pretreatment system onto there, and we did use it here 2 weeks ago when we got that little half inch of snow or whatever with that. So, and then it also put the wing on the grader and got our loaders ready to plow snow whenever we need to get to that point. So, with that, that's my report.
Thank you, Paul. Anybody have any questions or anything, again, comments on any of the projects or anything? Paul, when is the compost sites closing, I guess, the hours?
So the compost sites will be open, realistically, or they'll be closing a week from today. So that being said, the east side compost site would be closing, Wednesday. Sorry, let me just get you a date. The east side will be closing Wednesday, November 15th, and then the west side will be, the extended hours will be ending on the 16th of November. And then until we get snow, the west side will stay open until 2:30 every single day.
Okay, and if the weather report's right, it's supposed to warm up next week. I'm not sure how long, but at least into the middle part of the week, so. Just one other comment, I guess, as I was out and about this afternoon, I happened to go by the Apricot Street over there and see them working on and putting the wall in yet, working on that, and looks really nice. Was that part of our plan all along to do? I thought so maybe, but I didn't remember for sure, so I thought I'd bring it up tonight. But I got out and watched the guys for just a few minutes. I didn't go up and interrupt them. They were working in that, so, but it looks nice.
Yeah, no, that wall was part of the original plan. It was, the existing wall was failing
Yep.
pretty substantially. So, yeah.
All right, thank you. Let's see.
Thing.
Whoop, go ahead, Ryan.
So I noticed the painted white edge line in the bike lane on Baker Street was put down. The curb's still yellow and the signage is still out. When would we be tackling those items?
So the Diggers Hotline, I believe, was called in Thursday for there's going to be some no parking here to the corner signs. That'll replace a lot of those signs right now that say no parking. And then we just need to sandblast the curb. I was trying to find a contractor to come in to sandblast, and I wasn't able to find anybody, so we may have to tackle that ourselves.
Thank you. And we go to, if there's nothing else, we go to item number 3. Consider request to allow residential properties additional garbage bins for an additional fee. Paul, do you want to take that, or?
Sure. So the referral came from Alderperson Zacher, and apparently he had been getting some requests from some of his constituents about having an additional cart of garbage picked up at their properties or whatever. On the second page of the stuff that I handed out to you, and then what was also emailed, was just kind of a little synopsis, I guess, or interpretation of the current, and also attached is the current section of the ordinance. And so, as I was not part of the discussion with Public Works Committee, because Joe Terry was here at the time or whatever, it's my understanding that the intention of the ordinance was to provide consistency throughout the city, and pick up 96 gallons of garbage from all the residents. And that's really how the ordinance is written. The first go of the ordinance kind of had a Cadillac version of the current ordinance done, and it was sent down to the Department of Administration to review the ordinance. And when the DOA did the interpretation of the ordinance, their ruling or their suggestion was, or interpretation was, that if we provided this additional service of picking up this additional garbage, because there was situations where, if I had a birthday party at my house and I just had one additional bag, and instead of putting it on top, you know, I'd come down to the city garage and pay $2 to get rid of that bag, and we'd give them a zip tie or whatever, and they'd put it on the bag and we'd pick that up. DOA's interpretation of that is that we would be charging for a service that we were already providing. And if we did that we would have to reimburse the state of Wisconsin off of our shared, that amount that we would take in, we would have to reimburse the shared revenue back on that. And so then, at that time, at that interpretation, it's my understanding that the former committee kind of retracted all of that and just went to this normal, consistent, providing 96 gallons and everything like that. So I believe, you know, as I put down in the bottom, we could, number one, we could just continue to do what we're doing, picking up a minimum or a maximum of 96 gallons from every residential property. We could go through and rewrite the ordinance, send it down to DOA to have, you know, there may be someone else different there to interpret differently. And see if that was the case, and if they come up with a different ruling, then we could move forward or choose not to move forward. Or we could just pick up the additional garbage and then not charge anything for it. But we'd also have to rewrite the ordinance still.
And Paul, when you say about the last one there, of not charging for it, would that include not charging, unless I missed something here, not charging for the bin itself, or would we still charge for that, or can we?
I guess my personal opinion is to still charge for the bin, because it'd be consistent with how we do everything.
Yeah. June, I guess, you know, everybody else can jump in if they wanna. Do you know how many, requests or whatever, all the persons Acker may have received, or, you know, number of residents, or?
I did not, he did not share that information with me at all. I mean, I know over the 5 or 6 years that we've been doing this, you know, there's always one or two people every single year that ask for additional services, and we just explain what the ordinance is. And the other thing that we also, so we suggest that, you know, and it may be somewhat unrealistic because neighborhoods aren't as neighborly as they used to be, you know, but I remember suggestions of talking to your neighbors to see if they have a space in their can to get rid of a bag. You know, or we also have, you know, half a dozen of garbage cans in the back of the city garage that get emptied once or twice a week, that they can bring them down there. You know, and then there are some people that need 2 or 3 additional cans, and we just suggest to them to contact either one of the local vendors in town to come and pick up those additional needs or whatever. Now, what they ever have done, I've never followed up on it because they've never called us again after that, you know, but somehow they've come up with a solution.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, Ryan, go ahead.
I think it's worth digging into this at least and seeing if we can have the DOA review our situation here again. You know, with the switch to the automated system, I think it's created some hardships for residents around town, especially when it comes to large item pickup. So if we have an opportunity to allow them some additional space for trash at a fee, I think, you know, that's fair. And we should try to at least offer that in lieu of just saying you get 1 can and that's it. So I would be in favor of that. I'm not sure if that needs a motion necessarily to direct staff just to look into that or not. What are your thoughts?
I think
No,
we can just direct them if we wanted to, and then they can report back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can also probably put this item on the referral list too.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, because I'm sure it's not gonna, I've never worked with DOA before, so I don't know that they're the most speediest people, you know, but it's probably gonna take us some time to draft a ordinance to add that and then send it down to them to have them review it.
So do you feel like we'd need to have an ordinance prepared for them to look at, or is it just a conversation to be had? I'm not sure.
I'll ask that question. I'm not, like I say, I haven't ever dealt in that arena at all
Okay.
before. It may simply be an email being sent down to them with our current ordinance to say, we're looking at providing an additional can to residents and then charging them a flat fee for the year. What's your interpretation of that?
And I have no problem with us looking into it further. I get, the only thing that crossed my mind on it, and I know we already do the service and they're there in the area right away, they'd just be another can. The only thing, if we ended up with a lot of people adding to it, I don't, even though they're there, it'd just take a few seconds, but a few seconds many times adds up too. So it's just, that's the only thing that really crossed my mind about it. So, okay, thank you. Item number 4, consider setting degradation fee rates for the 2024 calendar year. Joe?
So since 2021, the city's been setting degradation fee schedules, basically for their degradation rates based on impacts and deterioration due to utility excavations in the city's streets. The Chapter 6 identifies that the fees should be established sufficient to cover the costs incurred by the city to maintain the infrastructure that has been patched. And so the current schedule that's before you for 2024 is based upon actual costs from 2023 contracts that we currently have going. So you can see the historical rates, what they currently are in 2023 and in the past 2 years prior to that. There is an increase in asphalt, concrete pavement, concrete sidewalk, and a reduction in the curb and gutter. And so the calculation that's been done is consistent with the prior years. So unless there's other concerns or questions, that would be what our recommendation would be to approve.
Questions? Any? Okay, Ryan?
Joe, can you speak to the reduction in the curb and gutter?
So the method for the calculation has stayed the same, but it's the values from the contracts in 2023 that were lower, the unit prices.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Anybody else? Hearing, seeing none, I'd entertain a motion, I guess, on what we'd like to do.
I'll make a motion to set the new degradation fees as presented.
I'll second that. If there's no further discussion, committee, we can vote. All in favor, respond by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it. That passes. Item number 5, review and consider approving a relocation order for real estate as part of the 2024 Lincoln Street project between East Riverview Expressway and just north of Chestnut Street. Joel, you want that?
So I did hand out an updated relocation order. I guess just for a little background on the terminology, the relocation order in the transportation project plat, they're kind of one and the same item. They're one sheet document and they go together, but so if I refer to one of them and not the other, it essentially means the same thing. But so the updated document, we do have some right-of-way that we'd be proposing to purchase as part of the Lincoln Street project. The total interest that we're looking at is about 4,400 square feet from 12 properties, one of which is city property. That's the biggest, I think the single biggest square footage of 1,411 square feet with an approximate cost of around $10,000. But it's part of the state statutes to do the relocation order when it's part of a transportation-related project. I guess if this plat were approved, then we'd have it filed at the Wood County Register of Deeds, and then we'd proceed with mailing out information to the property owners, conveying to them what their rights are as landowners and what they can expect moving forward.
Questions by anybody? I think it's worthwhile that we move forward on this, as that's part of our plan anyway to do. Joe, just a question, when you said, or I think you said about going just north of Chestnut Street, would that be where the City of Wisconsin Rapids property is?
That is correct, yes. Yep,
By
so,
Witter Field there?
yep, part of Whitterfield.
Okay.
So it would, we would be taking it back to Park and Rec Commission to have them review that particular piece of property, as well as, lost my train of thought. To the Finance Committee as well, following approval of the relocation order, to review the proposed dollar amounts that we'd be working with for offers to the specific property owners.
And at this time, what's the, as far as the bike path or whatever we want to call it there, which side of the street?
So the bike path currently is proposed to be on the east side of the street, so contrary to where the real estate is being purchased for the most part, which is all on the west side of the road. One of the things that we found out during kind of the preliminary review and layout is that the mapping that the city has and that the county has for the parcel line work on the west side of the street actually shows that we have 5 additional feet of right-of-way beyond where the sidewalk is today. However, when we dug into it, that mapping is not correct. And so part of our proposal was, well, let's move that sidewalk 5 feet over. And so that's what a lot of the purchases on the west side of the road, that's what it's doing, is correcting that, making it official. So I'm not sure why the mapping is incorrect, but this will correct that.
Okay. Anybody else?
I will move to approve the relocation order and transportation project plat for Lincoln Street between East Riverview Expressway and Chestnut.
I'll second that. And committee, if there's no further discussion or anything, we can vote. All in favor, respond by aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, ayes have it. Item number 6, review and consider changes to the engineering department's change order policy. Joe?
So this has been on the referral list for a while. It does come up before the committee, every 3 to 5 years or so. As far as I'm aware of, the existing policy's been in place for 20-plus years. Dollar amounts and any procedural things haven't changed at all. They don't necessarily need to, but there's always, some questions or concerns or ways to improve things. I guess just to highlight a couple of those. So the current policy allows change orders up to $5,000 and under 8% of the contract lump sum to be approved by the city engineer. That 8%, just being that it's, a percentage and not a dollar amount, a small project versus a large project can mean, a wide variety of different dollar amounts. So that's one concern. Another concern is that once a single change order or multiple change orders hit that 8% mark, that threshold, that any change order beyond that 8%, even if it's a small change order under $5,000, would technically require a change order, official change order to be done once that 8% level is reached. Again, it's not a big deal, but having a policy that, if the city has a budget that's been approved, and having, most of our contracts are, like our concrete contract is comprised of, it's one contract, but multiple projects within that contract. We've got a budget that's approved for that, that if we stay within certain spending amounts, that would seem to be a way that would mimic other thresholds that we have that are set up in the financial system, in the munis financial system. So those two aspects, the spending threshold based on a dollar amount rather than percentage, and then also the amounts, the thresholds on various approval levels that are structured based off of what's set up in the financial system for approval, would seem to make sense, assuming that everything is within an approved budget. If it's beyond an approved budget, then of course, we'd have to bring it into committee, or if we're above a certain dollar amount, even within an approved budget, that, either the finance director and his spending threshold would be triggered, or the finance director and the mayor, or, Public Works Committee. I have some examples in the proposed change order policy that kind of lays those dollar amounts out, just as an example. But overall, it is just an example, proposed change order that mimics other procedures and policies that the city already has. So it's a recommendation. Doesn't need to be changed, just something to consider. But it would simplify things and make it fit with other purchasing and approval requirements.
Thank you. Committee or anybody have any comments or anything on that? It may be worth, I think, to look at updating at least from what we do, and that it's interesting here. Ryan, did you have something?
Yeah, I guess question here, scrolling down through policies and procedures, you kind of have that dollar limit of, I think, of what we would expect the dollar limits would be if, when it comes to change order limits, you have the 5,000 for city engineer, the 5,000 to 25,000, and you get the finance director. 25,000 to 50, you got the finance director and the mayor, and then anything 50 or greater would be Public Works Committee. That's the path you would like to take, is that what I'm understanding?
So yes, in a sense, the 5,000, the limits set for city engineer and finance director, they mimic the ones that are set in the munis financial system when that was implemented. But certainly, any of these could be modified to other spending limits. And then the policy even has in there too, that anytime that we have that we bring a project or a contract in to review the bids and award the project, that, reviewing the change order policy specific to that project, if there's any special procedures that the committee wants to take specific to that project, we could set it for that contract then. That could be contrary to this kind of foundational standard policy.
Okay. Anybody else? Ryan?
So, Joe, I mean, you would present us something as far as what you're looking at, as far as the changes are concerned, and then we would move accordingly? This isn't
At bid time?
correct.
Yeah, certainly I could point that out at that agenda item for the bid award, that if the committee wants to consider anything different than this policy, or whatever policy's in place, that we could do so at that time.
Okay.
If there appears
So-
to be a need.
Case by case.
Yep.
Okay.
Is that it? Can we move on then, or? Let's go on to item number 7. Review the Wisconsin DOT's Local Road Improvement Program applications for the 2024-25 program cycle. Joe?
So this program, it does come up every year, although this year some things had changed for at least a portion of the state. So notifications to local municipalities only came out maybe about 4 weeks ago. With the program, there are 3 different funds that are available. One's an entitlement fund, so those, just like the name implies, they're funds that the municipalities are entitled to receive and apply for to designate to a particular project. The last project that we did was Smith Street and Cherry Street last construction season, and we used the funds in 2022 for that project. Roughly, the entitlement funds are around $55,000. That's what we're expecting again for this year. The application that we submitted for the entitlement funds was the Wiley Street project in 2024. So it's a 50-50 cost share on it, but that's some additional revenue that we'd expect for the 2024, budget year. In addition, they do have supplemental funds and discretionary funds. Those are also applications that we did submit for. We applied we submitted an application for each of those funds for the Lincoln Street project. The supplemental funds are 90-10 cost share, although in talking with the representative at the state, they didn't expect that any projects at 90-10 would actually be funded, and that they're kind of artificially looking at like a 70-30 cost share. And so there's a percentage that you can put in there with your application to try to get funded. So the lower the percentage, the better chances of getting funded. With our application for Lincoln Street, under the supplemental funds, we're requesting $322,920 in funding. And then additionally, there's the discretionary funds. We're applying for Lincoln Street as well. And I'm not sure that they can piggyback each other, but if we get one and not the other type of situation, that's what we're looking for. But $282,000 in funding is what our request is. And we've got those applications in. Hope to hear back, early spring, see what the results are on that. But just want to make sure I updated the committee on those activities.
Okay, thank you. Questions by anybody? Ryan?
Yeah, question. The supplemental and the discretionary, we're kind of all in on Lincoln Street. If supplemental went our way, is that basically you're forfeiting the discretionary at that time, or you said you were unsure if they would piggyback?
Right. Yeah. I don't believe that they piggyback. It's kind of one or the other.
We wouldn't get them both.
I don't believe so, no.
Okay. Even if it was 2 separate projects?
Perhaps if they were separate projects, but it's all based upon eligible expenses, and so Lincoln Street being the size that it is, it didn't seem, we considered the 9th Street project, but the dollar amount was so small comparatively. It was like, well, if we could get one of the 2 funds on Lincoln Street, that might be our best bet.
Okay, understood.
If there's nothing else, we can go to item number 8. Review the referral list. What did I just do with it? I I think it can stay the same.
So, planning did recently approve, trucker parking at the west side Quick Trip. I think it's 6 stalls. I don't know if that's gonna be sufficient enough to cover number 3 or not, but there are some spots now on the west side of town here coming in the future.
Okay. So can we remove that, you think?
In my opinion, 6 spots isn't a whole lot, but it's a lot more than what we have. So I would lean towards maybe saying that number 3 would be resolved, and we could remove it.
Yeah, I would think so too, and I guess it'd be one that if we, if the need be, it can be approached again. So, if it's okay with everybody, we'll remove number 3.
And then, would you like to
Put
add
garbage
the,
cans back on it, right?
Well, and the garbage, and Paul's gonna put the garbage can, or Joe and Paul are gonna get the garbage cans put back on, correct? Okay, that updates that, and, number 9 on the list is to set the next meeting date. And I didn't look in my I did, but I didn't bring my calendar phone in with me today, so what the regular meeting date would be in December. Does anybody have that right away?
it would be December 7th at, I guess, 5 PM. The council chambers are open then.
Okay, December 7th, 5 PM, okay with everybody? Okay. And with that, we can get to item number 10, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second that. Committee, all in favor of adjourning, respond by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it, thank you, the meeting